Hello, everybody. This is Jacob Sapochnik, host of the Enchanting Lawyer podcast. This is a show where we interview the most inspiring individuals from all over the world who share their stories with us and help us be better at what we do. And I definitely have to say that today I have a guest that is very, very unique and special. It's very different from a lot of the guests that I had recently. We talked to a lot of aspiring business people, attorneys, and I always look into athletics and sport, into my own inspiration, and because I feel this is one of those areas where you can, if you can pass those barriers, you can do anything. And today I have Jason Smyth, who is he is one of the stars of the Paralympics games, and he's in fact the fastest Paralympian in the world today. Jason has an amazing story. And I would like to read a quote that was about Jason by Tyson Gay, who is one of the top athletes in the world. And he says, I believe that Jason is very talented. I honestly think that his running technique is better than mine. Sometimes when he runs, he reminds me of Maurice Green. He would be in my top five when it comes to technical guys running. Maurice Green would probably be the number one. I think Carl Lewis may be in there, Asafa Powell, Leroy Dixon, and then Jason. And this is from Tyson Gay, one of the greatest sprinters of our generation, and one of only three men in history to beat Usain Bolt. And so, Jason, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you very much. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. So, how do you feel to get such a compliment from one of the greatest sprinters in the world?
Yeah, it's quite incredible, really. I mean, I don't really feel like my technique's one of the five best in the world, but to get a compliment from such an impressive athlete and someone who's been right to the top and has achieved great things is something that I'm proud of, I suppose.
Right. Well, I mean, I can only imagine this is such a great honor. And to our listeners who are listening right now, why don't you explain a little bit about your story? And we talked a little about before recording about your disability, but why don't you tell us a little bit where what do you have and how you were diagnosed and your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have an eye condition called Stargardt's disease, and I suppose basically the way it works, it affects my vision. So I've roughly around 5% vision, and the best way nearly to describe that is everything I see. I can see outlines of images, but there's no detail.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose a good way that I've always found to describe to somebody, because it's hard to describe what I see, is if you ever taken a picture or looking through a camera, when the camera's not focused,
Yeah.
you see colors and blurry images, but you don't see detail, and that's kind of to a little extreme of what I can see. But as I said, I was diagnosed with the disease quite young. I was 8 years of age, so probably definitely too young to really appreciate and understand the impact and effect that it was going to have. I can always remember being at the hospital and being told that I had this eye condition, and seeing the reaction of my mum and dad, that they could see, I suppose, what life could potentially have in store. And I remember sitting in there, you talk to doctors and they tell you about all the things that you're not going to be able to do in life, all the things that are going to be so much more difficult, and everything's negative. And it's amazing to see and know what you can do if you break those barriers down and look past them.
And we I mean, to me, it's very personal because we talked before the show, and I shared with you that my daughter is a special needs child. She was diagnosed with a genetic condition called muscle dystrophy. So as parents, we feel really hopeless, and we kind of. But at the same time, once the sorrow and the feeling of sadness passes, we feel that now we have to elevate our child and give him the best life possible. And I think your parents did that. I mean, what are some of the things that you remember as a child growing up, as far as your parents telling you, making your life a bit easier, just trying to make your life normal?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in these situations, your parents are instrumental to what happens. I mean, when I think of my parents, I everything was normal. I mean, I was no different or treated no different than any of my brothers and sisters. Yes, I required a little extra help and things, but I was treated no different. I was taught, like, in everything I do is to work hard at it and to never give up. I mean, once I started going to athletics, I started athletics and training at 16, which was quite late, but
Hmm.
they taught me principles of, like I said, working hard. And once you start something, you do something, and you do something to the best of your ability. And they're the things, as I grew up, I started to learn, and then I was able to transfer them things into what I went on to do.
Are you? Is your family a sporty family? Were you? Do you have your dad or your brothers and sisters, or something that kind of you took it forward?
I think, in general, we are a sporty family.
Hmm.
Yes, I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, nobody has done sport to a high level, but in general, everybody would be quite good at sport. And sport's one of them things that it looks fantastic on TV, and it looks, especially individual sports, they look very glamorous, but there's a lot of discipline and a lot of hard work that goes in that people don't see, and it's a lot. It just seems easier and looks easier than maybe what it is.
Right, exactly, exactly. And it's only you who are kind of growing up within this. You understand really what it's like. And Jason, I'm Israeli myself, and I growing up in Israel, a country with a lot of conflict, it does something to your character. I mean, I feel that I'm definitely much more, uh, um, you know, grounded as opposed to people who are maybe grew up in a certain part of America, who didn't have that conflict here. And I'm wondering about you, because you grew up in Northern Ireland, where there's a lot of tension between the religions there. How do you think that affected your who you are today and your abilities in sports?
Yeah, I mean, Northern Ireland, there definitely has been a lot of tensions. I think, to be honest, when I was growing up, it was coming to the end of it, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really see the full effect of it. So I'm not sure if it has massively affected me in sport. It's affected on me on the way I look at people, and people, regardless of their beliefs or race or anything, people are equal, and people should always be equal. And it's more affected the way I look on that way of life. But I think in sport, you talk about, I suppose you're talking about overcoming challenges and different things in life. I've found my eyesight and
Mm-hmm.
being able to overcome it, and the things that I've had to learn, to be, I suppose, completely comfortable and confident in me as a on the inside, have played massive roles on who and what I've become in sport. And you often hear it is, the more the people have to overcome, um, the stronger they become as people.
Right. And I think that one of the things that I like about you is that while you have a disability and you live with it, you don't really seem to be using that to your advantage. You always want to prove yourself as who you are as a person. I read somewhere in an article, when you first came to the U.S. to train in Lance Brauman's training camp, which is one of the top training camps for runners. You didn't really tell people about your disease and your condition. Why was that?
Yeah, it's something I've never really I've never done. No matter where I go or who I'm with, is I never just say this is I've got an eye condition, an eye disease, and
Hmm.
this is how it affects me, because I don't like to look at what I can't do. You know, I don't really believe in what I can't do. I believe in what is possible. And the more that I put that out there as an excuse for not being able to do something, then the person you're talking to can use it as an excuse, and you yourself can use it as an excuse to maybe not try so hard or not do something. So for me, I know that my eyesight is a disadvantage, but I've never used it or believe it
Hmm.
in what I do to be a disadvantage. And it's since I was young, it's never something I've looked at. If I play in a sport, I don't see myself as any less likely to do well than somebody beside me. I see this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm going to do it, and then I go and try and achieve it.
Right. And putting that goal of achieving that is to me just mind-boggling, because this is, I mean, you're competing with so many people that are brilliant, that are good, that are excellent athletes, and we're talking about a split of seconds that determines who's going to be number one and who's going to be the person that nobody's going to remember their name, and it's just a very stressful and complicated process. And so, just for our listeners to understand your level, you are considered to be the Usain Bolt of the Paralympics. And Usain Bolt is probably everybody knows he won the Olympics in so many records broken. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about some of the achievements you've achieved in your field, just to put it in perspective.
Yeah, I suppose I've been in Paralympic sport just coming up to 10 years. I've competed at European, World, Paralympic Games, won gold medals at all of them. I've 4 Paralympic gold medals in the 100 and 200. I've set world records. And in fact, I haven't actually ever been beat as a Paralympic athlete in almost 10 years. So
Hmm.
that's generally um, the things that I've been able to achieve in a nutshell.
So, another name, and I mean, you're obviously very humble, and again, I admire it very much. But another name that is known in the Paralympics world is Oscar Pistorius, and he's the face of the Paralympics movement. He's been the face for many years, but second behind Oscar in the media terms and everything else is really you. But the difference is so different, is so big, because he's kind of like he became a celebrity, and you are I would say as good as he is, but yet you are still a bit unknown to many people. What do you think made him so powerful in the way and what did he do to the sports, the Paralympic sports, to make it kind of known to people, and people are accepting it as a sport, just like the Olympics.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things going on with Oscar Pistorius over the last couple of years
Of
that's
course.
changed things. But to be fair to him, he has done a lot for Paralympic sport, because he has pretty much put the sport on the map.
Hmm. Right.
He has become he had become an icon that people started to watch Paralympic sport and learn a lot about it. So I think Paralympic sport will always be grateful for him for doing that. I mean, why specifically that he was that face is, well, people I think are looking for people that push the boundaries, that go
Hmm.
beyond what people believe is achievable, and he very much was able to do that, competing at the Olympic Games in London. So not
Hmm.
many many athletes, not many people in the world get to do that. Never mind somebody with a disability, and you think, well, that's not possible. And I think that's probably been the biggest difference between myself and him is I obviously just missed out in the Olympic Games by 400ths of a second,
Mm-hmm.
where he was able to make it. And the Olympic Games is what everybody watches. It's the big event. So him being able to make it there does, without a doubt, elevate his position. And I think, to be honest, the other thing that he's got going for him and his advantage is, the branding aspect is people can look at somebody with no legs running, and as an amputated athlete and see a disability. Sometimes with a
Right.
visually impaired or person, you can't actually see it.
Right. Absolutely. That's a
So
great point.
yeah, so for a branding and branding the sport, it looks more attractive. It looks more disabled, maybe is the word.
Right, absolutely. Because visually, people are visual and they see it, so it's just easier to identify. Putting on posters and all these,
Yeah, for me,
media.
for me,
Yeah,
you've got to come and see me or talk to me or watch me
right.
do things to actually see. Oh, this guy can't see very well.
Or
Rather than
right.
you can just see it straight away.
Or see you running with your glasses and wonder why you're running with the dark glasses or
Yeah,
something, right?
and there's no sun.
And there's no sun exactly. So like, why is he running with glasses? I mean, is he trying to game the system here? I'm kidding, but I think in you, I mean, and I'm wondering, when somebody like Tyson Gay gave you that comment, and you actually were training with him, and he's an all-time great athlete. What did it do to you to train with somebody of that caliber, to your abilities, to your state of mind, and how do you think differently now after you trained with somebody that level?
Definitely. I think it's not just in sport, but it's in general life.
Right.
Is if you can surround yourself or be around the best at whatever it is in the field you're involved in, you learn. And that's exactly what I was able to do. I was able to learn and watch on a daily basis on how top athletes did it. And I was able to learn and put them things into practice. But there's also a mindset that comes with being around them athletes is, they're always thinking more and more, higher and higher and higher. And that's the way that, I suppose it taught me to constantly look to the bigger picture, look beyond what I've achieved and try push myself as far as I possibly can. And that's something I tried to do is it's about trying to reach your full potential. That for
Hmm.
everybody isn't going to be winning gold medals,
Right.
but success is about being the best you can possibly be.
And I think that hopefully listeners that are listening to the show and get inspired, that's exactly what it is. It doesn't mean that you have to be Jason Smyth or Pistorius or any of the Carl Lewis's of the world. But as long as you know you've done the best and you reach your potential, this is a great feeling, and this is where we have to strive to try to do every time we do a task. And that's why athletes are so admired by people, because they feel that this is really, if he can do it, I at least can strive to try it.
Yep.
And I love it. And just what is the future holding for you? I mean, I know that on your site we're talking about the goal of you competing in the Olympics, but why don't you share with us some of the future plans and future goals that you have?
Yeah, well, I suppose on a year basis we have a major championship we're working towards. So this year is the World Championships, and they're in October in Doha, Qatar. So that's very
Hmm.
much where my goals and mindset is at the minute. And obviously this year is very much a stepping stone then onto next year, because next year we run into the Paralympic and Olympic Games in Rio. So for me, that again, Paralympic Games, I want to retain my titles.
Hmm.
Able to win double gold in Beijing, double gold in London. So to come back and do it 3 consecutive Paralympic Games would be, for me, it would be something I would be well, I really want to achieve. So
Hmm.
I work towards that. Obviously, also is the goal of trying to make the Olympics and be the first visually impaired athlete to do so, to make both games, and being so close in London. Just
Hmm.
I know that I'm very much capable of doing it, and it's just trying to make sure that I do everything right throughout this next year, leading in the winter, get a good base down in training, stay injury free, and hopefully, I can go on to achieve that. And then, as an athlete, we work kind of on 4 year cycles, because that's when the Olympics and Paralympics are. So once this kind of year and a half ends, then we start looking beyond that. But that's very much my goal for the next year and a half.
Well, I think you will get there. I mean, I believe in it, and I know you believe in it as well. And as we come to the end of our show, Jason, is there one thing that you can share with our listeners who are facing difficulties, who are, saying, I can't do it, I'm gonna give up? One piece of advice that you can share with people that you do when you feel down and when you feel like, you know what, I'm not gonna be able to do it. What would that be?
I would say just simply believe. Um, you know, I believe that we, as in everybody in this world, is capable of achieving and overcoming greater things than what we imagine. We always stop ourselves from what we're able to do, and I think if people are struggling or having difficult times, is to believe and see what you can achieve and can accomplish. Forget about the won'ts and the can'ts. Look at what is actually possible. And for me, I believe that is anything.
Beautiful. This is great advice, Jason. And I wanted to thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
No problem.
If people want to find you, I will give them a website and put it in our show notes, which is www.jason-smyth.com. And do you use Twitter or anything like that?
I am on Twitter. It's
Yeah,
at Smyth, SMYTH _Jason.
perfect. We'll make sure that we have those in our show notes. And once again, thanks, Jason, and have a beautiful day. You are in Ireland right now, and I'm recording this from Israel, so we're almost in the same time zone. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in every week. And we hope to bring you more exciting guests like Jason in the future. Signing off here, Jacob Sapochnik. I'll see you at our next episode.